Baseball is underway. Jeff was there the other night for a game, and we figured we'd get somebody who knows a little more than the fan in the stands to help us talk about it. Broadcaster, writer, former MLB player, all around good guy. Doug Glanville joins the show. Doug, welcome back.
It's great to see you guys, and great to be back into the heart of sports.
Is it a crazy time for you now? Like your post playing career, but you're prepping a broadcast. Like you were calling the Sunday night game that I was hearing the other night. So I can't imagine it's quiet time for you. What is the start of the season like for Doug Glanville?
Yeah, it's a fire hose, probably made with ammonia instead of water. I'd probably described. I mean, it's coming at you, and I love it though. I mean, this time of year, it's that internal clock that goes off that still feels like when I was five. Like I just like baseball's coming, the spring, and whether it's the flowers, the birds, or just the grass, the fields, it all connects the dots. That says, okay, I gotta get going here. And the good news is all the years I've been able to do this is year 16 at ESPN. I feel just I know what to do. I know how to get ready. I know the resources I'm going to use, and I have the connection and the network to kind of find those resources. That it feels like I can kind of kick into gear pretty quickly. So that made it a lot easier. And I ramped up bit by bit. I read my all my books, baseball prospectus, fan graphs, whatever, inside edge. I'm just all over this stuff. And then I end up kind of consolidating it, and I get my every year I get a new notebook, and I put all these notes down, and then I go in, and then I start doing the team specifically, Padres, whoever, and from there I break down the stats and the sort of the stats that I like to reference, and then I connect that with the storytelling, because one thing I do every single game is stand on the field during batting practice and talk to everybody, just try to find out. I met Kerry Carpenter, the Tigers. Hadn't met him, cool dude. We had a great conversation, and it's always nice to catch the younger generation that may not have been born in my career. so it's a great time. So because it's so fun and it is a lot of work, I don't even see the work because it's just something I enjoy.
We always ask guests, where can we find you? In the time that we've known you, it's been ESPN, the New York Times, University of Pennsylvania. You can go on and on. And I guess you found that you have way too much free time. And so now you've decided, and we are initial subscribers to your Substack. I don't know what you call page, whatever they're calling it now. And two of the things that you have recently wrote about are opening day and opening a new park when you were at what was called Enron Field. What does opening day mean to you?
It's renewal. It really is it's like a soul renewal for me. I always feel like, where baseball connects for me is it's my relationship with my brother. My dad was from Trinidad and Tobago. My mom was from North Carolina. I played a little softball, but my dad didn't really have baseball in his vernacular. It wasn't the thing. It was cricket. But my brother, who's 7+ years older, was like, I want to teach you this game. And I think every season I associate that turnover. First of all, it started with Stratomatic. Okay, the sets come in January in their yellow Manila Stratomatic yellow color, and boom, I play that up until spring training, and then I'd take off and look at box scores. So I always feel like baseball opening day starts that clock over, and that refresher for me is a lot to do with relationships with my family, my brother, the game, and I always find this bi-directional nature to it. I go back and reminisce and reflect and connect to what was, but I also kind of see myself in the future too. I see a lot of things I still love about the game, even as new and different, the rules, and there's still so much that feels the same. And so for me, I just love that engine starting up, and just the fact that part of your daily life is baseball now. It's like you wake up, the sun's up, you wake up, this baseball game. You're like, there's nothing like it in sports. There's nothing like it, and I love that familiarity that baseball brings. It's at your kitchen table. It's at your dining room table. It's in your living room. It's just everywhere, and there's a comfort to that. So all of it flows through like who I feel I am as a person. Like baseball. I was telling my kids, like, you want to know your dad, just know this game, and you pretty much have it. And I think that is why I love it starting over again.
I found your piece about the ballparks to be interesting, and also timely given what's going on in baseball right now. You led off in the new Astros stadium. You talked about the importance of learning new fields and the stadiums as a player. Here you have the Rays and the A's playing in what amounts to minor league ballparks. And so all the players are going to have to learn those stadiums. What do you think it's like for a major league player to have to prepare to play a season in what amounts to a secondary facility?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little shock to the system because you do realize that you are spoiled in this game. Okay. You get the facilities are so incredible now, let alone the fact that, you're traveling all the time and you want to just kind of come home. But like any other ballpark, you got to study. You have to be a student of that ballpark. You have to really invest in making sure it's home field advantage, not just in batting last, but because I know this ballpark better than you. And one of the best players like I can think of in that vein is Ian Happ of the Cubs. Like there's a lot to say. Like he doesn't have a rocket arm. He's not a blazing runner, but he's won all these Gold Glove awards, and it's not flashy. But I would make the case that Ian Happ may know Wrigley Field, left field, better than anyone knows any other position in the outfield in any other ballpark. Like he's so in tune. It was like Jim Rice with the Green Monster, who would fake like it was a home run and then turn around and catch the ball and throw you out at second base. Like I love watching Happ play at Wrigley because he knows the wall, he knows where that valley is, he knows the bricks, he knows the sideline, he knows the angles. So that is what I appreciate about the edge you can get as a player on what on your home field, but when you're on the road, and in this case, these two teams are kind of on the road to start until they get used to these ballparks, then you have to figure out all the nuances of the ballpark. And that could be the difference between, cutting someone off, trying to stretch a double, and someone turning a double into a triple.
Basketball, hockey, football, they're all played on fields that are the same dimensions no matter where you go.
That's right.
Baseball is unique that way. As somebody who played center field, you had to adjust to it and learn that probably more than any other position. Is that something that you wish had changed? That would you have liked the uniformity, or do you like going into different ballparks and learning the different fields?
Sacramento's
Oh,
got a real short porch out
oh, I
there.
love I love the challenge of going to different ballparks. I mean, first of all, it takes you on a tour of baseball, right? That's one thing. Like, oh, growing up, I was like, that's Veterans Stadium, that's St. Louis, and then like to show up in these places, you're literally teleported into childhood. You're teleported into as I talk about Bull Durham, right? The cathedrals of the game. Oh, I love that. I mean, could you imagine going to like, St. Peter's, or any of these incredible like, you know, structures of faith, and they're all the same. Like, it's like anything else. I like the diversity of going to these places and learning. Like I got pretty good at Fenway. I was like, okay, it might hit the ladder. It might, you just learn all these nuances. And as a center fielder, it's a great point you bring up. Your job is so much bigger than center field. You have to know your corner outfielder. You have to know their angles, and you are the one to back everybody up. Base hit to left, you better be behind them. And if you ever watch my old like games, I was sprinting on every ball. Base hit to right, I was running the right field, like just in case. And the ricochets, Minute Maid Park, which is Dyken Park now. I mean, the idea that you go out there and prepare for these games. And I remember at one point I would go out to the field and throw the ball against the different surfaces, which it has a lot. And if it hit the netting, it would kind of die. If it hit the out of town scoreboard, it might, go straight down. If it hit the pillar, it might come back fast. I mean, you had to know this stuff. And most important, you had to back up, because you never could assume which way the ball would go, even if the right fielder was standing under it. So I love that challenge. I think it's so interesting. It's a way to get an advantage. And someone like me, who actually played really shallow, I had to be very mindful of the fact that if a ball is going to go over my head, I had to be ready for anything. So yeah, so I love the fact that they're all different.
What seems like it might be a new challenge you would have had to deal with if you were in center field this year is the torpedo bat, which I know that Jeff has many, many opinions about, that he has been texting me, because I am very curious by this. I thought this was some brand new thing. I didn't realize Stanton was using it last year. The Yankees obviously made news, 16 home runs in their first couple games. Who knows if that's the pitching they were facing or the bat they were using, but now you're seeing players around the league really place these orders. The bat company's saying it's getting bigger. Baseball says it doesn't violate its rules. Your thoughts on what to me looked like a bowling pin when I saw it at first?
Well, I remember when baseball went through a lot of challenges around even licensing back companies. Back in what I was playing, there was a period of time where there was always all these people in the locker room, and they were kind of like selling you stuff, or hey, you want this? You need some T-shirts. It was a little bit chaotic, and I think they decided to cut down on that. So they created a licensing program, charged this like huge fee, and it just sort of got rid of anybody that couldn't kind of afford to be in there. And then they kind of were gradually, bringing it back. So whoever survived that, maybe it's the quality of their work, their relationships, but you have a certain field of play now in terms of these back companies, and there's rules, and I understand that if you're working within the rules, then you can design it. Like as an engineer, I'm like, great, like come up with this cool science. I
I
appreciate
figured
that.
you would be fascinated by the fact that they took the analytics of where the hits were coming off the bat and decided
Yeah.
to adjust where the barrel was, as somebody who is a mathematician.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Now I'm in the process of writing about this, and I really think this is where I go with it. And this is like the human condition, the challenge. Okay, do you design? Let's say you get to the big leagues and you're kind of young, and you still have a lot that you could get better at. But then do you design something so that you don't have to get better, right? Like I could be like, all right, well, this is my swing, and I don't have to change it because it's gonna hit the barrel. Like that's it. Like if I had a magnetic bat and a magnetic baseball and I could just swing it and I always hit the barrel, is that baseball, right? So I always feel like you're always battling yourself to get better. Okay, let me work on hitting that cutter. Let me stay on that ball. Oh, I don't have to because my barrel is like 2 feet long now. So I think you're always in this challenge of when do I kind of give up on my development and just let the tools be the difference maker, right? And if they are, right, you still got to hit the ball and all those things. So I always find that is the inner challenge that you confront, and so yeah, hitting is hard. So if I pulled off a lot, right? So if I pulled off, I probably needed the barrel to be longer this way. So for that reason, I could see like that makes a lot of sense. When I broke my bats, it was pretty much always off the end, and so I understand like that is a logical way to take the approach. And I'm sure there's drawbacks because I assume that if your barrel's down here and you have more kind of end of the bat, that might not be great for me because I'm just hitting more end of the bat. So, but he still look pitchers. The Diamondbacks came into town and they struck 14 Yankees out. Okay, so you got to still hit the ball, and great pitching will find a way.
My concern isn't that they do it. My concern is that it doesn't seem to have been studied in a way to at least figure out what the impact is going to be on both sides of the game. So if you're going to do something like this, it also impacts the pitchers. And so pitchers should have a fair opportunity to adjust before it becomes game ready and impact ready so now pitchers are used to pitching to certain parts of the plate because of the dimensions of the bat and the way that the batter swings. If you now change the dimension of the bat and you don't change the batter's box or where a batter is allowed to stay, I think it creates an unfair advantage for the hitters without giving the pitchers notice that the game is about to change in some way.
Yeah, and it may come down to collective bargaining. I mean, I think a lot of this is already in place about the rules and how they come up with these bat rules and dimensions and weights. There is some element of that, and they lean into that oversight, and it's sort of a foregone conclusion that okay, this is how you could use any bat in this category. Can't be aluminum. It can't be. So, but I do think when you start to impact, as you said, the culture, the jobs, all these things, then collective bargaining starts to get involved, and I'm sure they're going to discuss it. It's so noticeable because the Yankees teed off, right? And Ellie De La Cruz went 4 for 5 with 2 home runs. You're like, okay, wait a minute. All right. So now part of the reason why it's probably not as alarming as it could be in some ways, and not so much torpedo bats, but just like if there is this unfair advantage in hitters, is because pitchers have been so dominant, right? It's like, all right, you could, sticky stuff, you try to stop that. You're throwing 1,000,000 miles an hour. You got 12 guys in the bullpen that throw 100. It's like so hard to hit right now. They're like they're probably celebrating like, oh my gosh, hitters can do something. So, but yeah, I do think at some point if it affects the craft or a job, which because it starts to come to jobs, then yeah, you're gonna have a collective bargaining question, just like sign stealing. When sign stealing happened, I'm like, there's no way this is gonna last. There's no way, because pitchers at a certain point are gonna be, wait a minute, you're destroying my job. You're literally destroying my job. Why would I be complicit in letting you steal all the signs of all these pitchers when that's my job, by the way? Like it was unsustainable. Someone's was gonna blow the whistle on that. And I do think eventually, if it gets into that arena where it becomes that controversial, I do think baseball will review it. And look, baseball, we're a little bit retro respond. We respond kind of after the fact, right? Retro reactive. So that's kind of what we do. We'll fix it afterwards.
Doug, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on the show is Jason and I were talking last week about Jackie Robinson. We're not a political show, but we do talk about issues. And some in the government and society change the way that we're supposed to look at Jackie Robinson as just a ball player and just as a soldier. And our point was last week, if you take away the history of Jackie Robinson as the actual history was, while he was a great soldier and a great person and a great ball player, the meaning of Jackie Robinson is diluted if you don't take it in the context of real history. And so it was important for us to have you. We've talked to you about the importance of Jackie Robinson Day and Jackie Robinson to the game of baseball and society. And we wanted to have you back to help us with that and help our audience with the idea of, we don't want to change what Jackie Robinson means to society and to baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I of course support that 100%. And I think the power of Jackie Robinson that sometimes gets lost because there was this color barrier was that his main focus was equality, right? And that's a word and a term meant for everybody, right? And so when you're representing a people that are not treated equally, that do not have equal access, that do not have the ability to be seen on your merit, let's say, then he was championing this idea that we all should have the same things, right? We should all have access, and it should be irrespective of where we come from, our color, all the things we talk about in the First Amendment. And I think that is the spirit of it. So when you anchor there, you say, well, wait a minute, he's probably one of the great examples that if we're professing to have this sort of one day colorblind society, or one day this world where none of these things will differentiate in any way to keep you from opportunity, then that's the person you kind of point to, if anything. And to me, you want to uplift that person because of what he represents in that vein, because he is the person that did show us this possibility. Like, hey, I could play baseball. And by the way, he had to be great. He had to be great. And he was, Hall of Famer on top of that. But he broke in and then was able to say, okay, we're equal on this playing field. And that started more conversations about that. And then it was like the military followed in 1948, the next year, and integrated the military, right? So that example of what could be beautiful about diversity was the fact that it was centered around us being equal. All people are equal. And so that is something I believe you should want in everything, right? So to limit him is like you're limiting equality, right? Why would you limit that, right? Because you can be able to, like you said, he was a military man, soldier, fought for himself, went out there and became this incredible ball player. But guess what? He was also the first Black executive of a major corporation at chock full of nuts. He was also the first Black columnist at the New York Post. He was also, first Black bank owner in Harlem. And he was also, he stole first more than anybody ever, okay? Because that's what he did. And he didn't stop there. He inspired others to be first, but for the purpose of the leveling of the playing field, right? And it's a mischaracteristic that, he wanted, like, oh, I want to be better than, and he wanted everybody to come in and to compete on this playing field as equals. And then let's see who's the best. That's fine. So it's a great lesson for all of us.
And he didn't do those things because he was Black. He happened to be Black. While he did all of those things, he had those skill sets and got the opportunities because he deserved them. And so to reduce somebody's accomplishments because you are not a fan of the term or because of the times we're in sort of does a disservice to who they are as a person, as a man, as much as it is the jobs that they held or their race or religion.
Well, on top of that, he had to overcome. That's the thing. Like there's a lot of people that deserve stuff that don't get them, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, and he literally was the door that on one side was like, you don't deserve this just because you're black. Like that was a law. That was, I mean, so there, I mean, that's what we were working under. And he was like, all right, he became all these stars aligned, and he wasn't the best baseball player, by the way. I mean, Jackie Robinson's fourth best sport in college was baseball. I mean, look at his numbers in college. He hit like 130 or 140. I mean, he didn't do anything. That was his fourth. It was his worst sport. And his brother is Olympian, all these things, but he still prevailed. And it was so much more than just the ball player that allowed him to prevail. It wasn't just like, oh, you have exit velocity and fast twitch. What does that have to do with what he had to endure and survive just to get in the ballpark? And like the fact is, like, we celebrate that as an example of what you can overcome and the power of looking into a future of America that you're not even experiencing. And so by the way, I'm also writing this poem for Jackie for April 15th. And I think the spirit of it is like, if you try to make someone invisible, right? And anybody, like there's a whole book, Ralph Ellison, Invisible Man, and you try to make them kind of disappear and their story. But you have to think about, there's so many people that had to believe in what you can't even see, that they couldn't even see. I mean, that is what's so great about America in so many ways, that you have people that came to this country as property and gained humanity. And the only way you do that is to be able to see something that doesn't even exist, that you're not even feeling. You know that you may not even feel for 5 generations, 6 generations, 400 years. But one day you believe that this is the place that we can all go. And when you have that experience, you want nobody to ever have that experience again, to be property. You don't want, it's not just for you, it's for everybody. And Jackie was about everybody. And he had to call out, and think about, like, there's a book about Jackie Robinson's letter. I think it's called First Class Citizenship. I'm not going to get it quite right, but it's a compilation of all his letters. And he wrote, like, all the time, letters to MLK. He called out MLK on stuff. He called out Malcolm X on stuff. But he was absolutely consistently about candidates in the political arena, that who is going to allow everybody to be equal. Like, and he didn't care, the Republican, Democrat, Independent. He was like, I'm calling you out if you're not about equality. And so, I mean, that's transcending race. That's transcending our limitations as people and whatever construct we tend to put on it.
So you're a very thoughtful person, and I've been curious, how do you recommend baseball and other sports move forward in this time? I mean, baseball is removing the references to diversity from their career pages. At the same time, when you look and you see only 6% as of last July of Black American players are in baseball. So, how do we continue to make progress in a time where there is such social questioning of phrases and verbiage in history?
Yeah, well, you have to be creative. And you just go back and look at Jackie Robinson as an inspiration. There's a lot of things he had to handle obliquely, right? He couldn't take on certain things head on. I mean, you have all kinds of entities that were actually wanting the opposite of equality, right? So yeah, and it takes a lot of courage. And now we're playing with terminology and semantics and different things, but there's a lot of creative ways to still accomplish certain goals, because it's something that's important, right? And for example, baseball is beautifully diverse. Yes, Black players are, at lows and all these different things, but you still have people from all over the world coming together. I mean, you could celebrate that. Why can't you celebrate that and not have to say it's in some rote way, but in a real way? And look, a lot of things baseball does and some sports do are behind the scenes as well. They don't necessarily slap a label on it, but it is, I'm sure frustrating that when you do something out of this like better world, better angels, you're now afraid of being targeted for doing that. So there's a fear factor that's real. Do you say anything? Do you like call it diversity because people are going to get mad at it, or DEI or whatever? So But that's typical history. A lot of terms that were meant to bring equality get co-opted eventually, right? Affirmative action. It's just because a lot of these things were ultimately policies, and they weren't perfect, and they weren't even always benefiting who you even thought they were, and it just sort of runs its course. And then sometimes people who don't want that, they actually don't want to lay a level playing field. They actually will blow it up and undermine it eventually, and then you have to do something else. I do think there's a cycle to that, but it's going to take a lot of courage, and right now I feel like we're all trying to figure out which way to go, and we're pretty disoriented right now.
And to me, that's a great word for Jackie Robinson is courage. People seem to lose sight of it's not about me versus you. It's about us. And the beauty of baseball and sports and when integration happened and the way integration is still happening, as you said, as it's happening internationally, is that more people become included in looking out at a field and seeing somebody like them, so that doesn't mean that they're rooting for only their kind or somebody that looks like them. It means that they feel included in society. And baseball, to me, represents the best of society in that way.
Beautifully said. I mean, and I think that's the message that gets co-opted. Like, you want advantages, you want all these things versus I just want to be on a level playing field. And it's based on real stuff. It's based on experiencing discrimination. It's based on unfairness. It's based on things that you've gone through. It's like I could tell stories all day long in 2025 of like people that I know, family members, my own experiences. I mean, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in where we could go, and I won't fight for it. I mean, I think you have to fight for it. We wouldn't have the society we have if you didn't know that you have to fight for freedom. You have to. It's a never ending. But I do think that the idea of representation mattering, it does matter. And look, if the one day where everybody is like, doesn't use these things as for power and just differentiate and discriminate, and one day, but we're not there yet. So it's hard. It's like easy to declare victory. I would say like, yeah, I want to declare victory now. I've had a 90-yard head start and it's a 100-yard dash, and now I want to say, okay, everything's fair now. It's like kind of hard to do that because people who are still trying to and still dealing with it. But if you want to go back and say, okay, I want this fair society, and I'm going to now actively dismantle all these barriers to all these people, and like that's what I'm doing, and to make sure it's fair. That's one thing. It's another to declare it fair, and then be like, oh, let's just act like nothing happened, and then actually end up giving advantages to people that already have them. So that would be fun to play a baseball game like that, right? We saw that with steroids and PEDs. Like, that wasn't fun for me because I'm competing with people that have advantages, and I'm trying to hit pitchers that are throwing 100 miles an hour at 50 years old or whatever. And I'm like, come on. So it's not, nobody wants to be in that situation when they're actually really reflecting on what is true sport.
If we could, we would keep you here all day. We know you got things to do. You got articles to write, games to call. It goes on and on, but we're in Philadelphia. So we got to ask you, Phillies, what are you thinking?
No, Phillies are one of the best teams in the league. And their pitching is really strong, and you're going to need it with the Dodgers in town, right? Those guys. I just did the Dodger game. I'm like, wow, this is like unbelievable. Great question. David Cohn asked Dave Roberts. He was like, don't tell me your starting rotation. Tell me 6 through 10. And I listened. I was like, wait a minute, that's an all-star team. They're so deep. It's fun though. They're a good group. But the Phillies, they can pitch, and they got the talent. So that's what's going to be exciting. And you remember I was a Philly fan growing up, and certainly playing, and I just did lose my mind because the Dodgers knocked them out all the time, and I was like, no. So that drove me absolutely bonkers until finally 1980. So, but I want to see the Phillies have a good year as someone who's a part of their family. But they're really talented. So I like them as one of the elite teams in the National League.
And you got the Braves stumbling out of the blocks with injuries and other challenges. I mean, we had Dan Schlossberg last week, and Jeff, I asked him about the Phillies having the best pitching rotation. He goes, "Oh, hold on, that Atlanta rotation." Jeff, we should have done that interview this week. I don't know that you would have gotten that response. Doug Glanville, we love getting some time with you, and we appreciate how thoughtful you are in having these important conversations with us and with everybody else. Look forward to talking to you as the season goes, and have a good one, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.